Hello, my fellow fans of the small. I'm Laura Blair, and this is Tiny Worlds, Big Stories. Here we celebrate the artists who craft small-scale magic, miniature makers, diorama dreamers, and dollhouse designers, and uncover the stories and creativity that bring these tiny worlds to life. Whether you build tiny scenes or simply love them, welcome. Sometimes the things that change our lives, they don't arrive with a grand plan. Sometimes they show up as a tiny chair, a disco ball in a dollhouse, or an unexpected relief of making something with your hands after years of staring at screens. Today's guest, Erica Meade, spent years in the fast-moving world of tech as a design executive, constantly building and leading and solving problems. But after being laid off from a startup, she found herself in a rare and uncomfortable space, stillness. And in that stillness, she started making miniatures. What began as a handmade dollhouse for a friend's daughter quietly became something much larger, a creative practice that helped her reconnect with her joy, attention, wonder, and a different definition of success altogether. This episode is about burnout and beauty, about why tiny details matter, about the surprising emotional power of hobbies, and about what happens when we stop treating creativity as something frivolous and start recognizing it as something deeply necessary. Erica is brilliant, curious, funny, and full of all the kind of observations that make you want to pay closer attention to the world around you. And honestly, after this conversation, you may never look at a miniature or your own creative impulses the same way again. Hi, Erica. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. Good to see you, Laura.
Good. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're really busy, and we're going to talk about that in a second, all that you're busy with. I want to start with little Erica and what she played with, and did you build tiny worlds, or was that later?
Yeah, I did have a dollhouse growing up and I loved it, but I feel like I didn't carry that through, kind of to being an adult. I realized though, and I was thinking about this the other day, I did collect toys. There was a time period where it was called urban vinyl. They're little colorful plastic kind of toys. I got really into those actually. And I did work at a toy store for my first job. So I guess I have been kind of connected
Ah.
to it in different ways, but definitely had not really thought about minis until I kind of restarted, which I'm sure we'll talk about later.
Well, and let's segue. So, you're super left brain, super right brain. You got the whole package. Very jealous of that, by the way. And you did a different route. So, tell us a little bit about what your day job is, what happened in 2020, and then how all of this magic kind of came into your life.
Yeah, so this is maybe going back a little bit further, but I think it's maybe helpful context is that I worked at Paint Your Own
Yeah.
Pottery Studios after I worked at a toy store. I'm assuming that you've been to those
We have
before where,
those here.
yeah, totally. And I really loved the idea of helping people come in who were feeling kind of nervous about painting, like there'd always be the kids and people that loved it. And then they'd have friends with them that were like, I'm not creative. I'm not an artist. I don't know what I'm doing. And I loved helping to kind of nurture them and bring them along. And so I've always been really interested in how do you get people to engage in creativity. And personally, I've always been kind of all involved in creativity. I ended up studying studio art in college. And then after that, I realized, okay, I don't know that opening up a paint your own pottery studio is really going to bring me the kind of life that I want to have. I also didn't think I wanted to try being a kind of the starving artist stereotype. So I ended up immediately after I graduated from college, taking classes in all the design software, and ended up really falling in love with technology. And so specifically UI and UX design and kind of building the interfaces of software that you see around you. And that led me to great kind of career that I loved, focused on designing software and also kind of deciding what software to build. So been in the tech space for a long time. Um, and then around 2022, at that point, I was VP of design at an agriculture technology startup. My team had 26 people on it. It's awesome. And we had been acquired by a large agriculture company in the Midwest, and they made the choice
Uh,
to shut down the San Francisco
uh,
office. So myself and 50 other of my
oh,
um,
man.
colleagues got laid off. But it turned out it was actually this like awesome gift for me. It kind of changed my life in many ways, and I had been kind of go 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 for um ever. I guess I don't have any chill as a person, and so yeah,
I
I
get that.
a forced pause, which is when then I ended up, doing a couple of creative projects and really kind of shifting my life. My day job is complicated. I do a lot of things now, but I still do tech, product and design consulting, is my paid work, but then I also fill my days with lots of other activities.
So tell us about that first build that made the little girl very, very happy. I love that video of her squealing with
Yes.
delight with the unveiling.
So yeah, I knew I wanted to take some time off of screens, and I worked on a creative project right as I was getting laid off. I made a giant skull to decorate the front of my house, and I was talking to a friend of mine. Oh yeah, for Halloween, it was so
No, just
fun. Yeah, no, it was like this big skull made out of sheets of insulation foam.
cool.
And it was so fun. It was the most time I had spent on a creative project in decades, and I was focused on making this giant thing. I had so much fun. I didn't look at my phone. I wasn't on screens. I was just kind
Mhm.
of immersed in the project and was talking to a friend of mine, and we had been chatting about how her daughter wanted a dollhouse. And, maybe that's what my next thing is during this forced break from work, which I really took as this opportunity to have the permission to kind of do whatever I wanted to do, I guess. Um, and yeah, I decided I would make a dollhouse for a dear friend's daughter. It was great. We collaborated. We did the brainstorming session and sketched and looked at magazines together. It was like
This little pumpkin is
she
like a
was.
client for
Yes,
you.
and I didn't want to share her name, so I called her Tiny Client.
Tiny
Tiny
client.
Client. Yeah. And so Tiny Client had a lot of, perspectives. I would like videos of where I was at and send them to her mom, and then she'd like, record back responses and stuff. And it was awesome because she was, "I want a disco ball in the living room. I want rainbows on the walls. There has to be a bunk bed."
I still want those things. How about you?
I do too. I think a disco ball is underrated.
When we get older, we lose those,
Yeah.
like, fantastical ideas and become so practical.
It was super fun, and so we kind of collaborated on it, and she'd come over. So I live in Berkeley, and, she lives in San Francisco. She'd come over, and we'd, brainstorm with the dollhouse. She'd draw some stuff, and then I'd make things. It was really great. And so she kind of knew what she was getting, but on the day of the big reveal, I made a little front facade for the house, had her cut a little ribbon, and then pulled up the facade, and she just naturally squealed and made the cutest little sound of joy.
Uh,
What was so cool about it is I had had so much joy while I was making it. So I was coming off of, working in
mm.
tech startups. It's kind of very immersive, sucks in all of your time and energy. And I didn't realize it, but I was completely burnt out. As I made each little piece of furniture and figured out how to do things, I felt just so much joy and calm and peace having the time of my life. And when I delivered it to her and then she made that squeal, I've effectively taken this joy that I had and transferred it to
Aw,
her. And it was really sweet.
I just love that. Oh, that's so sweet.
It's so
It
lovely.
makes me so emotional thinking about what that you could practically see the transfer in the air when she took the little string. Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yes.
During that whole process, did it occur to you like, wow, I could kind of do this on the side. I could do this to make me happy? Or was it just like the project's going to be done and then I'll revisit where I want to go from there creatively?
Yeah, and I definitely was like, "This is amazing. There's something happening to me, to my brain, to my body." It felt like so much lighter. I mean, who knows if it's causation, correlation. I did just leave a very stressful job. I had runway to kind of not be stressed about finding what my next job would be or anything. But yeah, I could tell that this was something that I wanted to do. And I accidentally kind of, the dollhouse form that we ended up using that I picked with her mom, it was actually 1/16 scale instead of 1 and so it meant then that I couldn't buy anything for it. And I didn't really wanna buy anything, so I had to make every single thing from scratch. So I basically went from not knowing how to make a miniature to being like, I have to do every single thing, and it made me just realize, okay, I've always loved crafts and making things, and so this is a hobby where you get to do all the crafts. Like, I have a garage filled with all these craft supplies that I've gathered over the years, and I was going in I can use my wood carving tools. I can use these random, things that I've saved.
You turn the hobby of collecting art supplies to actually using them, right? I know. And that's the thing about
Totally.
dollhouses, you use so many things.
Yes, in every project, woodworking, fiber arts, painting, whatever else.
Amazing.
So it was great, and I knew this is gonna be part of my life, and I also knew I don't wanna work the way I used to work.
Mhm.
Maybe, I'll go back to tech, but in a different way, because I didn't want my job and my paid work to really become so consuming in the future. Yeah.
Now, are you able to kinda compartmentalize those 2 lives? You've got your creative life not that your work isn't creative, but, like, you get to really work with your hands when you come home. So that's sorta key.
Yeah, so I think, San Francisco Bay Area is amazing, it's beautiful, I love living here, but it is very sort of, like, career status oriented, so when you meet somebody for the first time, they're like, "Oh, what do you do?" You just kinda say what your job title is, and I think
Mm,
when I think about my work and what it used to be, it was shorthand for defining who I want to be as a person, like, I'm not a very title kind of person. "Oh, I'm VP of design." So that already tells people you must be a competent person that can
right.
lead and think strategically and big picture, whatever. Oh, and design, oh, you must be kind of creative, whatever. You must have some level of empathy and understanding of people and how the world works. So it helps, right, as the shorthand. But I've decided now that even though it's harder to explain what I do, I kind of think of my consulting work, which I care a lot about. I was just on a call with a client right before this, and it's awesome. I give them all of my energy,
That skill hasn't gone away.
but when I'm done with it, it's done and in a little
Yeah.
container and it's separate, and, I think of it as an important part of my life, but not something that really defines who I am. So, I now will lead with I'm a consultant, but I make miniature things, I volunteer, I do all these other things to kinda, like, define who I am, which is more complicated and not as simple.
I love what you said on your website that your job is the least interesting thing about you now, that it's really about all the other stuff. Well, because you were able to find your way to have both. And a lot of people, that's a hard thing to do. Having the skill to be able to juggle both is really good. And I will say you're extremely prolific and a quick study, obviously, a quick study, which helps, right? Because you meet
Thank
a
you.
skill, you learn a skill, and then you incorporate it. And then not only that, you present it beautifully. So
Thank you.
all the bases covered, which is great, but then also knowing you need to get off your phone and go deep and go quiet,
Yeah.
and I get that, and that's a skill. Like, there are a lot of us that really struggle with that. Not naming any names, but there are a lot of us who struggle.
I mean, don't ask me about my screen time, like, definitely still am on my phone, quite a bit, and when I delivered that dollhouse to my friend's daughter, and she squealed, it went viral on Instagram and well, viral for me, I feel like viral on Instagram could be something crazy. All of a sudden, I had, like, 10,000 followers on Instagram. "Oh my god, what just happened?" Like,
Right.
"Okay, what does this change?" At first I was feeling kind of like, nervous about it, whatever, but then I've always been a person that likes to document and share things, in part because I have a really bad memory, and so it's helpful for me even just to use my Instagram as a way to be like, "I swear I made a chair like this before. How did I do it exactly?" And then, it forms a reference for me. But, yeah, no, I definitely I just know that I can at any time if I'm, like, feeling stressed or overwhelmed or, in a bad mood or something, if I go sit at my craft mat and make something, I'll probably feel better afterwards.
You'll be alright. Yeah. Yeah, it's a healing hobby for sure, and not even just a hobby, it's just a way of life, I think, for some of us. So, you seem to you're a deep thinker, and you reflect a lot, and you write. And, I've been kinda doing a dive on your Substack. I love it. So tell me how that started and how you use that to kind of process some of your stuff in all of this work.
I feel like I'm giving you the longest answers possible, but everything's kind of interconnected.
That's what this is for.
My my multi hyphenate, yeah, I do a lot of different things. So right around when I finished my first dollhouse, delivered it, okay, now I need to start thinking about what am I gonna do next in my life, right? Because 'Cause I'd given myself the permission to take a break from full-time paid work. What do I wanna do? And I loved making the dollhouse stuff. Maybe I can try to do the dollhouse stuff full time. So I actually did a bunch of, informational interviews with different, makers, kind of reached out to folks, "Hey, I think you
Cool.
make doll stuff full time. What's your life like? What's your job like?" And I decided that how they described their lives, which was awesome. I don't think that's what I want my life to be. I think if I try to monetize this, it's gonna take something away from what I'm
Right.
doing. And I, like, have full respect for, like, everyone. I mean, I was just at the Chicago miniature show, and, like, I'm so glad that there are people that are focused on making beautiful work and sharing it with others and letting us all enjoy and learn from them. I don't know what I wanna do, like, maybe I find a way to go back into tech in a full-time capacity, but maybe at a more creative or kind of like craft or hobby-oriented business, and I did a whole brainstorm with a friend, and at the end of it, I've invented hobbies. I'm trying to figure out a way to make hobbies. I need to put that aside. Instead of going back in full time, I'm gonna see what I can do with consulting. If that's a good life for me, then I can still make stuff, and I can explore other things before kind of basically I felt like I had broken something or changed something about my life, and I wasn't ready to totally go back to it. But this
Mm-hmm.
idea of inventing hobbies kind of stayed in my mind. I ended up talking with another friend of mine that I went to school with, art school with. Oh my gosh, I recently started making these little robot models, Gunpla little I shouldn't call them little robot models. It's a whole thing, like model making. It's like I put my kids to bed and then I'll sit and I'll spend like 20 minutes working on this robot and it totally, makes me feel calm. I'm not doom scrolling. I'm just immersed in the moment. Okay, if two people are having this experience, let's see if there's more. And he also works in tech, and so is kind of like, I guess, curiosity of how do things work and what are ways to maybe make things better, what are barriers to entry, et cetera. We did a bunch of research and what we found was that it wasn't just us, that there's so much science that shows that hobbies, crafting, creative making, specifically focused handwork, does a lot of great things to, the brain and the body. How do we, I had said I had invented hobbies a year prior, and maybe it's not about inventing hobbies. How do we eliminate some of the barriers to entry? Because I was able to work basically full time on a dollhouse, which is such a gift, and nobody else would have that like, privilege and opportunity,
What
right?
happened in 2020 for a lot of people? It's like, holy cow, what am I going to do with my time? And
Yeah.
then it became, oh, I love this. Oh, I'm good at this.
Exactly. But most people aren't gonna have that opportunity, like, hopefully, knock on wood, we don't have another global pandemic in which something like that occurs. How do I kind of take some of the friction away from discovering a hobby and engaging in it and also not feeling guilty about it? Because I do think that creative hobbies and really anything that's not associated with creating
Oops.
economic units of value.
Yeah.
I don't I don't wanna get, like, too philosophical here. I'm eventually gonna get back to your question about my Substack, I swear.
No,
I need to bring you all around on this journey. Um,
go, go, go. Go, Erica, go.
but yeah, so, there's like sort of stigmas if you're not making money with it, or if it's not directly related to like advancing your career or otherwise creating some kind of economic value in society, like it's kind of stigmatized, right? It's like not a thing that people
Yeah.
necessarily, want to do or feel like they have the I don't know, permission is a word I think about a lot. It's this indulgence of working on a hobby, right? So yeah, so my friend Ben and I, well, how do we reduce some of those barriers? How do we make it easier for people to find and learn about how to engage in a hobby? And then how do we help to kind of support from a behavior change mindset, this idea of you should be making things and also that making things is this really powerful form of self-care. So because we're in the Bay Area and work in technology, we need to have a startup. That's a way that we
Of
can
course.
actually like help at scale, have people kind of recognize and be able to like elevate and celebrate creative hobbies in general. And so basically, when we decided we're going to do this, I'm going to start writing about this. And so I started a kind of weekly practice of writing on Substack, mostly about that startup idea, kind of where it originated, the things we were learning and exploring. And I should probably count, but I want to say I must have almost 2 years worth of writing on there now.
Yeah.
Haven't been weekly always, but very close to weekly. And it really ranges from, I mean, there is like kind of startup technicalities, like what's it like to found a startup and try to get fundraising and stuff. But I also write about AI and art. I write about miniature shows. I write about all kinds of things.
It's a nice balance, I think.
Yeah, it's if you read through it, you'll see it's kind of a window into how, I guess, I don't wanna say, like, fractured because that has negative connotations, but I'm exploring a lot of different things in my day to day and in my life.
What
Yeah.
you were saying before about the memory thing, 'cause I have that issue as well. My memory's not real great. I have to write everything down. It's almost like I'm writing for I'm like my assistant because you'll be able to read this
I
manifesto that you have that you had for 2 years. You'll be able to go back, see the impetus for all of it, and then see the fruits of your labor from it. And that's super amazing. Not a lot of people are able to chronicle every part, and the fact that you have that, you could also, I mean, you could help other people who wanna do something special like this with this process, which is super
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I've always been a person who thinks through I feel like I can write better than I can speak, from just, how I formulate ideas and stuff, but I found that writing things down, kind of processing them through this post and also I'm like an accountability person where, "Oh, yeah, I
Mhm.
need to post every Thursday." It adds a little bit of structure to kind of my, somewhat, fluid, schedule life week. But it also then gives myself a space to sort of think about things on the page digitally, and then I find I can talk about them more and see more of the connection. So I highly recommend writing stuff down.
So I want to talk about your builds and how you really got into it. Gosh, there's so much the details, Erica, the details in your pieces. And how yeah, what was the first build you did after you did the one for your tiny client?
Yeah, then I made another dollhouse for a friend's daughter who I called Tiny Princess, who wanted a house for I'm trying to remember how she described it. She's like a house for a queen.
Do you have testimonials on your website from these little people?
I feel like I should.
Leave it in their language.
Yeah, right? So she, is very different from my tiny client in some ways, although they're friends, and she had ideas. She was less engaged in, like, the design process in detail, but more had, like, strong points of view from, like, aesthetics and contents that she wanted to have within the house. And that one was 112, and then I realized when I did the 112 scale, okay, this is much, much easier. Yeah, difference
Oh,
I
good
mean,
grief.
honestly, in part, just also for kids, like, you need to be able to get your hands in there and play.
Right,
And
right.
so, yeah, so that house, I really love that house actually. Um, I thought a lot about how pieces kind of connected together. And with my first dollhouse, the my tiny client, her dad's an amazing photographer. And so he ended up taking some really
Oh,
dramatic photos of her house. Okay, I loved making this. I love the joy transfer, but actually there's something about an image of a miniature when it's taken
yes.
with real focus, with a nice lens, with beautiful lighting that does something really special. And so I knew when I made that second dollhouse, I called up my friend Joe, Tiny Client's dad, and asked him to come photograph Tiny Princess's house before I dropped it off for her. And I knew as I was building that one, I was thinking about what will the picture be? And
Yeah.
how do I want to photograph this space? And what do I want to be able to see from kind of what angle? I started, even I think before I built it out, I was making like a shot list of what kind of pictures I wanted and kind of thumbnail sketches.
Did you learn from Joe? Did he teach you how to do it, or do you,
Yeah, so I'm really lucky too. My husband, Alex, is an amazing photographer. I recently learned he was a minor in photography, which somehow I did not know. He was a math major, photography minor. But he is really
oh, yeah.
talented at photography. And so we got my third project was making a Passover Haggadah, the book you use for a Passover
It's
Seder.
beautiful.
And I wanted to decided like a couple weeks before we were hosting it, we're gonna illustrate the Haggadah with miniatures. And so Joe wasn't available, and so we like, FaceTimed with him. And, okay, Joe, like we have like a flash, we have a camera. What are the settings? How do we do it? So ended up pulling together that work, and that was the first project I did that was not intended for a child, and it allowed me to go even more into the details, more kind of super, not worried about durability and really focus more on lighting and shots and stuff like that.
So that's where your heart really kind of landed with all of this, to be able to show what you're making through photos and with your hands too, to show. We're going to talk about that, but the not really understanding if it's real or not, that's kind of a fun thing
Yes.
to do with photography as well. So it wasn't so much about building things for other people and selling them, it was more about the photos.
Well,
Am I right in
I'd
saying
say
that?
I think that the art is the photos, but for me, it's the making of the miniatures is really fun too. I feel like it's not like I have to do the miniatures in order to get the photo. I love making the
Sure.
miniatures. I love all the process behind it. And then what's so great is that then I also have this other part that I love, which is the photographs at the end.
You get to celebrate your builds and everybody else gets to enjoy them. And that's part of the communication with this community, which is so fun.
Yeah.
I love that. That's great. So you're clearly skilled with lots of things, and I find it interesting. You would rather hand build than laser cut or 3D. Do I have that right? What's happening there for you?
So even though I study art in college, I've never been great drawing a straight line. I'm not a straight line person. It's kind of always sort of wobbly. And so I use a Cricut and a laser cutter. I rely on them to help me because you really need straight lines in a lot of many things. But I then the assembly of those pieces and I design all the
Ah,
elements myself. So because I've worked in design forever, I'm really fluent in Adobe Illustrator is like the primary tool that I use to set up most of my files. And so I'll look at a piece of
Wow.
furniture. How do I build this? What would it be? I will say it's just a pro tip to people. Like you can find dimensions, really detailed dimensions and schematic drawings of almost anything online. And then if you have vector editing software, like I think maybe Canva and other tools can do it. I just only know I know Illustrator really well, so it's called you can just pull them straight in and be like, okay, cool. I have this. I know the dimensions I usually build files at full scale, what they'd be in real life. And then at the end, I select all and scale them down to 8.333% for 112. And then I'm able to use those little components and then I'll either use Cricut or laser cut or whatever else. But 3D printing, I do have a resin 3D printer. I've used it for some things.
Bless you.
I,
I just don't know, man. I don't know if I could do the smell.
it's like the smell, the mess, the stress of it, the build failures, whatever. And I have so much fun figuring out how to kind of put the things together and then finishing by hand that 3D printing just it doesn't bring me joy, and it feels like you spend too much time on screens, and so when I
Yeah.
think about yes, screens are part of my miniature making, but I use them to create kind of the raw components, and then the rest of the bits I like to kind of pull together by hand, but I don't know, I wouldn't say it's all handmade. I did just take a class on using the table saw, which I maybe will change my
I
perspective.
That looked great. That's something I need to learn. I was feeling brave watching you from a distance. Yeah,
Definitely
I mean, you gotta learn to
a different thing, but I mean, I'd say I think people will ask me, "Oh, is this 3D printed?" And I wanna be careful because I think if people enjoy doing 3D printing and making dollhouse miniatures using 3D printing, do it. It just doesn't bring me the same amount of joy, but I do use for many of my things, I'll use a Cricut or a laser cutter.
Would you say the details are your favorite part? The details, the tiny, tiny, tiny things?
I think that what I'm really interested in is understanding what makes something look real. What are the elements of it that kind of help to kind of take something from looking, oh, it's a miniature to something that's real. And I find
Yeah.
that there are these details that you kind of don't notice and you don't really truly observe when you're just walking around the world, unless you make miniatures, probably. But they change how something looks. So I have there's chairs, which you can kind of see behind me. I don't know if I should get up and get things, but I made these dining chairs. I was looking at
All
them.
pictures in
Okay, great,
so
great.
people can see them. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was looking at these dining chairs and something doesn't seem right. And then I was looking at pictures of chairs, observing chairs. Nearly every chair has a little foot on the bottom of it, right? Like the little rubber, they don't scratch your floor. Like it's rarely just a wooden leg that's
Yeah.
down. So I went through and I cut out little tiny, with a hole punch, little tiny black circles of thin polystyrene and added them on the bottom of the chair.
Um,
It's the kind of thing where you're like, "Okay, well, no one's gonna, like, see that." But when you see the picture, I have to imagine that all these little kind of
yeah.
invisible things add to it. So in my restaurant project, knew there was gonna be a bar in it, and I was like, "Okay, I haven't worked behind a bar before, and I know that the bar, you won't totally see behind it that well. I want it to be realistic, did very important research at bars and was talking to
Let's
bartenders."
go behind the bar.
Yeah. No, and the thing is what I love too about this hobby is if you tell people that you're making miniatures, they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's so cool. What are you doing?"
I
And so
love
I would
that.
talk to bartenders and, "Okay, so I'm making a bar. Tell me about how it's set up back there. What are the pieces and elements that make it
Wow.
more comfortable?" I downloaded all these guides about the ergonomics of a bar and I was looking at things like I'm very disappointed that my the bar that I made is not ADA compliant. There's supposed to be a certain number of inches that are in
I'm
front of it.
calling the authorities.
I know, no, but the thing is though, is it's like those elements, you don't realize it, right? But they're what
Yeah.
help to make it real. There's a dish there's this commonality of this dishwashing rack.
The dishwasher thing, that's what got me. You got that right on. Yeah.
Yeah, but like, you don't see it, you know what I mean? It's like there are these
Yeah.
things that I feel are kind of like visible in a way to us, but when they're not there, oh, this isn't real. It had to be an autochlor dishwasher because that's what is behind every single bar. There had to be this rack. There had to be these different little trays and elements. So, I'm a very detail-oriented person, so I found the right hobby for
Well,
me,
it
I
works
guess.
for this. It works beautifully for this because well, and I'm gonna segue a little bit again with you got so many fun things going on.
Do, yeah.
The whole thing about, having someone look at your image and be totally delighted that it's miniature, and you said something really cool. Your quote was, "Is how we can no longer trust images because that's where we are now. That's where we live." but
Yeah.
miniatures deceive and delight, and I
Yes.
I really love that. In an age where, would you say, the fear and frustration of AI deception is everywhere, but this fun little thing where you're tricked for a second and you go, "Oh," and then you wonder how they made it. How did she figure out the dishwasher rack in the bar and all the things you're gonna display some images, some beautiful photographs in this show in 2027, correct?
Yes.
Is that right? In San Francisco? I wanna hear all about that because that is
Okay.
just the coolest thing.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think right around, when the first photos of my first dollhouse, they don't necessarily look really real, and as my skills improved and I got my laser cutter in between dollhouse 1 and dollhouse 2, I think, and so my skills leapt ahead because I was able to have, cut straight lines and stuff for furniture, again, made entirely, designed and made by me for, I think, 99% of that dollhouse. And yeah, I noticed in the pictures, wow, like these pictures are kind of deceptive. Like you can tell something's kind of off, but they sort of look real. And I ended up in that photo shoot with my friend Joe of that second dollhouse. I think I need my hand to show the scale because,
Yep.
otherwise it's not necessarily, oh, I'm just seeing a picture of something. And then the hand, it starts to look like it's almost gigantic or this sort of, I think of it, I call it scale buster, helps you to kind of understand what you're seeing. And the fun thing is that before I even started making minis, thinking I was looking at my through my photos. I think 2014 is when I started wearing this exact color of red nail polish.
I read that you always have the same, yeah, I
I
love that.
literally buy it on eBay, and I also have all these rings that I've collected that I wear, and I think of them as someone said this recently, my tattoos, because 'cause they're
Yeah.
always on. I mean, my fingers are kinda swollen, so I feel like I can't even take them off right now, but it's this kind of adds to this continuity and kind of, I guess, signature for my work, but,
The maker signature for sure.
love seeing these pictures that, make you think that it's something that's, full scale, and then the next shot is a hand coming in. Oh my gosh. And that moment of, wow, I was tricked, or I'm sure you have this happen too. You scroll through Instagram and you're like, wait, is that a full scale room or is that a tiny room? What is this? And that feeling, that kind of delight, like, the word that comes to mind for me is bamboozled. I was tricked. There's something kind of, like, delightful about it, and that feeling is in such stark contrast to, I think, when you see an AI generated image and you're tricked and led to believe that it's reality, but it's not. I mean, a lot of times it's totally innocuous, but definitely has been used as kind of a tool for
When you're
propaganda.
looking at an image where you're being bamboozled in the best way, your mind immediately goes to, "Oh my gosh, they made this." I mean, it's not like AI. It's like, that's so irritating that I thought that that dog was really jumping on that trampoline. But
Yeah.
with a miniature build, you look at the details and all the things, and you say, "Wow, that's what I feel as a miniaturist." That that person sat and lovingly made these tiny little things and put them all together. And how much time did it take? What was the process of, what tools did they use? Those are all the things that I think a lot creates the delight because there's a lot of cool stuff behind it. A
I think,
lot.
yeah, one creates this sense of awe and appreciation, and I hope makes you, as a viewer, think, how do I see the world? And, what are all the details around me that I don't notice? Because miniatures are so much about details, where obviously AI is kind of the opposite. And, yeah, I've been thinking a lot about kind of the deception of the image. And, I decided, I think last year, I want to find a way to show my works while I don't wanna monetize or sell it in kind of a traditional sense. Do, want to help to kind of share and, I don't know, like, not showcase. I wouldn't say I'm not a recognition motivated person, if that makes sense.
You're an artist and you want to
Well,
show your work. I think
sure,
that's actually
sure.
really common. Do you want people to see it?
Um, and I
When
ended
is
up
it?
so it's in January of 2027, so I'll have the exact dates and I'll share more about it. But I ended up going to a friend of mine who's super talented. He had an art show at this really unique gallery space in San Francisco. It was a series of ramps, and actually is an old mortuary, and it was like where the gurneys
Excellent.
were rolled down. But yeah, so when I went to go see a show, oh my gosh, this is the one gallery space I've ever been in where the artist controls the viewer's journey. Because usually you walk into a big space and like a person can go left or right, like they can kind of take it all in.
Is
Um,
this like the IKEA of galleries where you have to go in a certain direction?
yeah, I mean, it's literally a series of ramps that go up. I actually have, I made a model for the gallery owner that I actually have right here.
Of course you did. Let me see.
Yeah. So
Wow.
It's like this really cool space where there's this series of ramps.
Ooh,
And so what I'm really excited about for my show is that I'm gonna be able to basically reveal this whole, you're gonna start off seeing images of interiors and then you turn a corner and there's the hand. And you're like,
the hand.
wait, was I just seeing, small things or big things? And then eventually, as you keep going up, then the actual small objects will be there. So the miniature scenes will be.
There, like in real life.
Yeah, I'm intending to inset them in the wall so that
Oh
they
my
become a
gosh.
picture too, kind of a la Thorn Room, although obviously not as amazing as Thorn.
Oh, I wanna go. So this is
Yes,
January? Okay.
yeah,
Oh,
January. I hope
amazing.
everyone will come, and I'll share more details. I feel like it took me a year to build my last project, which was a miniature
Yeah.
store, and I'm hoping to build at least 1 more space, if not 2, before January, so we'll see. We'll see what I get to.
Okay, so you've had so many multiple builds, and we're gonna talk about actually, maybe let's talk about that now because 'cause you've got the mini store that started with the creating contest, did it not?
It did. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. So the
tell me
bar
about that.
Yeah. So the bar that I made where I was, like, researching, what dishwasher to use, I called it Bar Pinto, which is named after my dog, Pinto, and, that project, which you can see behind me and I'm sure we'll show pictures of, that was from the Creatin' Contest in 2024,
Mm.
and I used that just as a way to have a deadline, a starting kit, and just kind of riff upon it. I really enjoyed it, and I got a first year entry prize or something, and I was like, "Oh, I'm definitely gonna do this again for the 2nd year." So 2025 got the Creating Contest kit, which had a series of arches in it, and I started thinking about what I wanted to make, and I decided that I was gonna make a tiny store that was like an offshoot of the bar. So called it Pinto's Provisions because the bar was called Bar Pinto.
Everybody knows that shop.
Yes, yes. I definitely, like, hyped it up so much. It's
Yeah.
actually right here, we can't see it very well, but we'll show some pictures. It's unfortunately
Uh,
very large, and I don't know where to put it in my office, so now I have no workspace. I ended up from that creating contest thing, I'm gonna make a store, I'm gonna start working on it. I began by making all the tiny things to fill the store, and then miniatures.com, changed ownership, and they said that they were canceling the contest, and I was definitely bummed, but also, well, I'm not doing it for a prize, I'm doing it to have this, to make something, there's already headwinds around making stuff, like I was talking about earlier. But,
yeah.
deciding what to make and also having like a deadline is a really helpful motivator. So, you know what? I'm going to stick to it and I'm going to go through with it. And that is what I ended up using as kind of the starting point and foundation for my
This
store.
is killer build.
Oh, thank
Spectacular.
you.
That's why I started
Thank
noticing your
you.
fingernails and your rings. That's what I was like,
Uh-huh.
that's her hands. I get it. So, and also you had to have a store with the bar. I mean, you gotta put them side by side because they kind of go together, correct?
Yeah, they're gonna be
The,
across the street from each other. Yeah, they're part of the story, and so the apartment I'm building is gonna be on top of the store. So, yes, I'm building an apartment, that's gonna be next to the
Are
store.
you gonna do some terrain around this little neighborhood of store apartment? Are you gonna have a setup where you can photograph it that's actually like a place, a corner?
I mean, the facade of the store ended up being a part I liked way more than I thought I would, and same actually with the facade of the restaurant. So, I haven't quite figured out how I'm gonna display those at the show, but I definitely want them to be visible. But yeah, I think that context, I always will print out or pull up photos on an iPad and put it outside of a window, have, like, backdrop that's kind of just, out
Yeah.
of focus, kind of the set scene, behind windows and stuff. So, yeah, definitely to create the full illusion, there has to be some outside.
So the creating contest is canceled and you continue to
Yeah.
do your build. And then you think, you know what? We could keep this going. Like, how did that all come about?
So I started chatting with a couple of people who via Instagram were like, yeah, I'm still gonna do it. We were all like kind of mourning the end of the contest and I had only done it. This was the second time that I had done it with the store. And while we understand why it has to end and sent notes to the new owners of miniatures.com, really sweet Emily, Christine, whose last name I can't remember right now, but she's awesome. What do you think? They were the original family, right, that owned
Okay.
miniatures.com
Okay.
forever, and then they sold, miniatures.com to Christine from
Got
Miniature
it.
Crush, and I was like, "Hey, can
Right.
you would you guys wanna do it? Like, we really like, how can I support you? What will happen?" They're like, "Hey, we can't do it right now." They're like, "Oh, okay." And so I started talking with Lindsay Burke, and she is a miniaturist and kind of furniture flipper, totally hysterical person. We started chatting and we're like, well, maybe actually, I mean, what would it take for us to do it? I come from tech, I come from the startup space like, where we always are inventing something from nothing. Like it doesn't exist. Right? What does it take to launch something new? We can do this. Like, we can figure this out. And so we talked to shares.com current and past folks. We started researching kits. We're all like looking at, what do we have around us? What would be a good inspiration? How elaborate can we make it? We didn't have access to manufacturing capabilities that miniatures.com had previously. But Lindsay was like, we should talk to Kelly Trichter from Melvin's
Hmm.
Miniatures. And we ended up talking to her and okay, we think that we can do a relatively simple kit. How can we keep costs down, whatever? Can we do pre-orders, all these things? And you have it. I know, I have mine right here too. Oh my gosh, yay.
I have
Um,
it.
yeah, and so it's, like, kinda simple, but our whole idea was that we wanted to encourage people we call it a door to somewhere, and we wanna encourage people to create a door, window, or other type of opening,
Mhm.
and think about kind of the 2 sides of a window or an opening. We
It's
tried
gr
to get all, like,
Great
poetic
idea.
about it, where we're like, "Oh, yeah."
Yeah, no, that's where I live. I got really excited about that.
Yeah,
I
and
love
so
it.
it has a turntable, and so the whole thing, can kind of spin around, so you can see both sides. And yeah, I mean, we didn't know what was gonna happen. We didn't know how many people would do it. We went with pre-order just to make sure we could kind of first
Mhm.
gauge, interest. We got almost 50 people, or I think it was
Wow,
48 total kits in the first pre-order, and since then, we've had many more people order as well too.
excellent.
Yeah, we're, like, really excited to just keep this tradition going because it gives you a starting point, it gives you a deadline, it provides a little bit of that accountability and structure.
I think it did that for a lot of people. I think people are really grateful to have it back because it's a huge void. I mean, there were a lot of people that did that, and it was so fun to see everybody's interpretation because the miniature community is so invested in each other's work too. I mean, you kind of saved the day on that. So good for you guys. Like, just really cool. Really, really, really cool. I was so excited when I saw it. Yeah, it's great. Awesome. So, and I'll put in the show notes where you go to get everything, to
Yeah,
get the kit and to enter. It's by Christmas time, I think, by New Year's Eve. Is that right? Do I
December
have that right?
December 4th.
4th. Okay. So in the beginning of December. So I'll put all that in. That's actually really good because once you get past the 4th, you're in holiday land and everything goes out the window. So I don't know if that's what your thinking was, but that's pretty smart to get it
And
done.
that is how we're sort of really borrowing directly from the original create and contest where they had it first Friday in December. That makes sense before the end of the year gets too crazy.
So I was just thinking about one of the things I'm excited about in the community is something like this, a collective contest that everyone gets to do. What are you excited about where kind of the miniature community is going or what's actually happening right now? What excites you?
I think, I have done a true deep dive into this world. I mean, it's been I guess I started 2023, so I guess I'm about 3 years into this now, and what I have been just so impressed by is, um, there's something about mini making people like, I was joking at the Chicago show, I wanna do a psychological profile of a miniaturist because there is this certain, like, type of person where, I think there's, like, a little bit of intensity, there's a lot of passion, there's, I think, high empathy because you're, like, you're trying to understand a world and recreate it or something. There's just something about the people, that I feel like every miniaturist that I meet, I'm like, instantly, "Yeah, you're so awesome." Like,
That's why
you
I'm
can
doing this podcast. I get to talk to all of you. I get you all to myself for an hour. And the thing
exactly.
is too, I mean, that's so beautifully said because I want you to get that study published. I'd like to see it because I really do believe that there is something unusual about this community and the sharing,
Yes.
the generosity, and the excitement about other people's projects.
Yes.
There's not so much like a jealousy thing where there isn't other art mediums a little bit. It's just very special and very different. And then someone like yourself, you bring that whole like the tech part that like your website's clean and beautiful and like all of those things come into it and you get people making partnerships like you and Lindsay and Kelly where you all bring something to the table and you all do your thing and then and then you birth this thing that kind of needed to be there that you didn't even like. I don't even think people really knew that it was possible. It's the people who find things
important enough to do the work in
Yeah.
this community. I think that's really what it comes down to. Yeah, it's a great thing. And do you go to a lot of the shows? I know you just went to the Bishop show. Do you go to a lot?
I I didn't realize it, like, that the first show I went to was the Vegas show. I was a month into making minis, and I could not figure out how to
Oh,
do electrical. There was a workshop on electrical there, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm not that far from Vegas, I'll just go." I remember I walked into the room and "Where am I? What is this?" It was so
uh,
electric, people were all just, like, squealing with joy and stuff. It was also, a lot of women, a lot of older women. I'm considered young, even though I'm 42. I'm considered young in the dollhouse space. Yeah, right. And it's just like an interesting group of people with different, like traditions and experiences and passion. I don't know. So, yeah, going to the shows feels almost like this kind of like slice of the world, like ethnography, kind of from a user
mhm,
research perspective, which is part of my paid work. Super fascinating to kind of
mhm.
understand. And also, how often are you in a space where every single person is, "I'm so excited to be here. I
Into it.
can't I'm so into it." There's, like, a couple of the people, "I'm here to hold bags for you," or,
Right,
a friend
right.
that got
Yeah,
brought along. But, yeah, every time I go to the show, I love being places where people are excited to be where they are and where people are just feeling the energy and everything's great. So, I have now become a person that goes to a lot of miniature shows.
yeah. Hopefully you go to IMOMA again. I'll see you there. That's February.
I wasn't able to go.
And they turn it into it's mini cons even bigger. It's everything
Mhm.
small now, which is
Mhm,
super, super
mhm.
fun. The Bishop
Yeah.
show is kinda like the grand poobah of regular miniature shows in terms of modern stuff, right? Modern dollhouse things and also traditional things. Did it kinda blow your mind a little bit?
Yeah, so this is the 2nd year I've gone. I wasn't gonna go, and then my husband was like, "Don't I think you wanna go." I wanna go, yeah, I do. So, I decided to go kinda last minute. I mean, there's a lot of international folks there, who
Mhm,
only go to the Bishop show, and so saw
mhm.
some work that just totally blew my mind. Very overwhelming, it's humongous. There's preview day, which is after I did the preview, I don't know if I can come back even though I've only seen half of it. It's, very, overstimulating, I'd say, in terms of all the things to look at, and, like, my back hurt because I was crouching over looking at things, my eyes felt strained,
Yeah.
It's a whole sport, but I mean.
But you got to combine it with some cool stuff that you did in Chicago. You got to see the Thorn Rooms, correct? Did you go see them the
Yes,
first time or second time?
this was my 2nd time.
The joy of Chicago and all the cool things it has to offer artistically. It's amazing. It's such a great town for art.
It was great, and yeah, there's always the workshops before the shows too, which I've now started to do, and definitely recommend for learning new tools, and also I was mentioning the teacher for one of my classes, he's older actually. Both of the classes that I took, during the day, they were, with older folks who are either retiring or close to, retiring. There are all these people with deep knowledge and expertise, and making sure
Mhm.
that that kind of legacy and knowledge is continued within the community, I think is really important.
Well, like the Guild School, that whole concept is amazing to me. You get these people who are brilliant at this one thing that they do, and they're able to carry the legacy of that on. Because a lot of really old art things are going away because people don't do them, and luckily in miniatures, it's not the case, which is great. I wanna circle back because we didn't mention it, but we're talking about, the research that you did on hobbies and things that are so good for you physically outside of your work, and it doesn't have to be monetized to make it valuable. Can you talk about your app and your platform that's
Yeah. Basically identified stigma barriers to having hobbies. And so my friend Ben and I, we were looking at, well, what are other hobbies that seem to be thriving and really growing, right? And exercise and cycling are things that are really kind of quite popular and have tools to support them, like apps like Strava that basically help you to track your progress over time. What would it mean if we made a app that was like Strava for crafts? Basically, an app for makers, a way to track your progress and creativity over time. And so we started by creating just a Google form that he and I used when we would track every single session that we did, upload photos, stuff like that. And we did it for a little while and we were like, this is awesome. My gosh. Cause like everyone or people make things in different ways, right? But my camera roll, if you scroll through the camera roll of my phone, it's 50 pictures of a miniature and then, whatever friends and stuff. It's a chaotic mess where you don't actually get to, if you wanted to see, how did I make that thing or how long did it take me to do this? It's actually really hard to estimate that. So
Mhm.
based on basically building for ourselves, we then worked with a friend who is a really talented engineer. We worked together to then build our app, which is called Practice. And we have an iOS app that's in private beta. It really is about celebrating, your creative activities. And we have big dreams and visions for going beyond just right now. It's really focused on kind of tracking and documentation. But we have a whole component that we're working on building out to help match people with hobbies, to help them find the right
Mm.
hobby, and also lean upon some of the science that we've dug into some of our advisors and other books and resources and stuff around finding the right match of skill and challenge and other attributes so that it's not just that you find a hobby, but also that you find the right entry point and that you
Mhm.
build kind of this sustaining interest. Because a lot of people, I had a friend who was like, I want to start knitting. So I've been collecting sweater patterns. And ooh, if you start knitting by making a sweater, you're going to have a really bad time. So, like, how do we make sure that people know what is the right way to start within a hobby? We also see a big opportunity for getting recommendations for craft supplies. So sadly, I don't know about you, but there used to be tons of dollhouse brick and mortar stores near me. They do not exist anymore. It's really quite sad because not only were those places where you could buy materials, but also you could figure out, you could go talk to a person. I want to make this. How do I make it? With what tools? With what materials? And I find that actually on Instagram, with my account, when I share stuff, people are like, "Oh, how'd you make that? What tool? What material?" But you can go and try to find stuff on Amazon, or there's luckily some really great online resources, but there isn't a place where you can go to get a vetted, buy this
Mhm.
$5 thing that's awesome that will help you make this thing. So we think product recommendations are something that could be really helpful, vetted recommendations for materials and tools.
I would value that. I definitely would, 'cause I mean, right now, I'm going to New York on a trip in September. My most exciting thing, I'm going to this dollhouse store,
Ah, I
and
haven't
it's right
been.
in the heart
I
it's small, but it's right in the heart of everything, and the guy knows everything. He's been doing it for 30 years, and, I mean, that's like the dream, to be able to hang out and just learn some things and buy some products, and yeah, that's kind of a dying thing for sure in the US. It's just not a huge moneymaker, the brick and mortar, that's the problem,
Yeah.
but I would say going online to find it in one spot, that would be great. That would be
So
great.
we're still kind of working towards that element. I think overall, my goal is to help enable creativity in people, right? And to let them know, hey, you can experience joy. And when you think about when you're stressed, right, you probably have different activities that you lean upon for self care. And really, when I think about what I'm trying to do, and we have our app, which is, I think, an important first step. But I jokingly say I'm trying to start a craft cult. I'm trying to make it so that people understand, hey, you know what? Creative making is a form of self care that's really powerful. It is something where if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling down, if you're feeling, unhappy, go and make something and you will feel better. The science shows it does good things to you. You
Oh,
can
yeah.
enter flow state, you can do all these great things. In general, the way I see it as why am I working on this app? Why am I interested in this kind of why is this one part of my life? Is because if you think about how meditation has changed in the Western world over the last or so years, right? From being something that was seen as sort of fringe to now people are like, oh, you're stressed, go do some box breathing or whatever, or go try and
Mhm.
meditate. I want craft to be that. And so my hope is that I
It
can
is. Is it
it
not?
is.
It's for you. Yeah, me too. Flow state is the best kind of meditation. I mean, you look up and
Mhm.
it's like, it's dinner time. It's been hours that you've been working on this one thing. I can think of a lot of cults in the US right now that could really benefit from switching over to crafting cult. That would really
Yeah,
benefit all of
yeah.
us. What do you think?
I
I think a
totally
lot of
agree.
times people don't think it's a valuable use of their time because they're not going to monetize it, or time is really short if you got a family and a job and you have to fit it in. But if it's you have the right resources, I think it's easier. The point of entry is easier. And then you go, this is why we do this.
Mhm,
Yeah, I think
mhm.
that's a wonderful contribution. I'm so glad you guys are doing that and you've done the research behind it. It's great. So, what do you hope? And this is just the last couple questions when someone is either standing in front of your beautiful photos at this exhibit or they're looking online at your work or they get to see it luckily in person, what do you want them to feel besides deceived and delighted, I guess?
I hope that they feel a sense of delight and a sense of awe is kind of a big word, but maybe just appreciation for the world around you. I feel like making miniatures has made me more observant and grateful, wondering if I see it, oh, how would I make that small? What would it take? And I feel just more kind of present and connected. And so my hope is that people will see the image and, they'll maybe start to get some of that, but they'll also perhaps making things is kind of contagious. And so knowing someone made
It is.
this, could I make something like this? And how would I make this? And it kind of triggers a little bit of curiosity, I think. So that is
Mhm.
my hope, is that it's at first an appreciation for it, but then also maybe I could do something like this too. So nothing makes me happier than when people message me and be like, "You've inspired me to start working on a dollhouse," or, I followed your little tutorial and I did this, and it's that brings me so much joy.
I love that. That's great. And then my last question is, what would little Erica think about grown up Erica
Hmm.
honoring her and what she loved through this work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, I always knew that making things was fun for me, and craft and creating things. I think I believed that I'd have to be a professional artist or have kind of a very different type of life in order to honor that, to make those things. And I don't know. I mean, I've loved my time working full time in startups. I think it was really great. And I enjoyed it. It's not like I was like unhappy in my work or anything. But I maybe would encourage little Erica, or, whatever, 20, 30-year-old Erica, like, how do you make sure you carve out more space for making things? Because it's so fun, and, it's not a choice that you don't have to be all in on something, I think, to do something. So finding that balance, and also trying things out, and not being so obsessed with making more money or job title or whatever else. But certainly ambition can be applied to a lot of, I don't know, different things in your life.
Mhm. I think she'd be proud. That's great. Well, speaking of delighted, it has been delightful to get to know you more and see all the work that you're doing, and it makes me really tired thinking about all the stuff that you're doing. You got a lot of irons in the fire. It benefits all of us, so that's great. But keep on doing your thing, and I will see you in person for sure. If I can make it down to your show, I will. So I just want to see the ramps. I want to see how you do it with the ramps.
That should be awesome.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a wonderful rest of your season building this spring, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you so much. It was great chatting with you.
Thank you.
Bye.
If you loved this episode, make sure you're subscribed on Apple or Spotify podcasts or the YouTube channel so you don't miss the stories and wisdom these incredible artists share. I'd love to see you inside my newsletter, Small by Design. On YouTube, just tap the link in the description. On Apple Podcasts, scroll to the bottom of the show notes. You can follow along on Instagram at Laura Blair Art Studio for my art, and at Tiny Worlds Big Stories for podcast updates. If you're feeling generous, a 5-star rating helps other miniature fans find the show. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next time in another tiny world with a big story.